Yes, this is now tarot lesson number 145, and it's called Trust Your Own Self. And this is part one of two. So, I've been watching various videos recently on how to read the tarot and how to learn meanings and how to learn everything in 20 minutes, that kind of thing, and how to create spreads. And they're okay as far as they go, but I don't think they go very far. So I want to tell you a second opinion, so to speak, so that just to give you maybe a different point of understanding or something like that. I'm not quite sure. So I've got an outline here, and I'll go through it. And I hope it makes sense. It made sense when I wrote it down, but, that was just me. So point number one is, I need to turn and read this. What have I got? People want to know stuff, right? So it's like there isn't much that's true about everybody in the world, but I think everybody in the world wants to know things. We want to know, for instance, I'm having trouble with a child, or my child's doing badly in school. What can I do to help? Or should I move to a new city? Or should I get a promotion? People have got thousands, maybe millions of questions that you think about the number of questions you've asked throughout your life so far. People want to know what to do or the best way to go about things or how things are going to work out. So that's point number one. Point number two is we like people to tell us. So we'll often go to an expert or somebody who is skilled in that particular area, and we listen to what they say and we maybe obey it, or we don't obey it. But one of the problems is that for every expert, you get 10 experts, you get 10 different stories. So ultimately, we still need to make a decision about who to trust. So I watched another video by a fellow called Indy, he's an architect, Indy Johar. I'll put the link in the description down below. And he talked about, one of the things he talked, the video was about designing for the architecture for the future. And one of the things he talked about was how for the last 400 years, the logic of the world has been command and control. And it's a bit like governments and religions and the educational system and everybody and everything, rich people. They want to be in command and they want to control people. So they want to control us, and they're quite good at it. They've been doing it for a long time. So it can be that one of the reasons we want other people to tell us what to do, or we look to other people to guide us, is that it's a kind of side effect of what Indy observed as command and control. We're not encouraged to think for ourselves or to make our own decisions. We're filled with doubt, or it's reinforced that we're not very good at what we do. So we really need to go to experts or have them guide us or tell us what to do. Think about the educational system, right? You've got 25-year-olds. You can't let them all, well, you could let them all do what they wanted to do at that moment, but it would be chaotic. And teachers don't like chaos. They like control, and they like to be in charge. So everybody sit down, everybody sits down. That's control. That's command and control. So we look to experts, and so I think that this is why Carl Jung, for instance, I watched some videos on Jung and the tarot and various books that people recommended, the best tarot books for beginners, intermediate and advanced. So, and I'll talk a little bit about this in the next video, the follow-up to this one. But the thing, I think that we're sort of brought up to believe in experts, or to think that we're not good enough, or that somebody knows more than we do, and we ought to listen to what they say and learn what they say. And so people read and study Carl Jung and his writings, and then they want to take what he discovered and apply it to different areas, to themselves or to the process of individuation. And they want to apply it to the tarot and to astrology and all the rest of it. So the only problem is that Jung has a book called The Red Book, and it's a kind of journal or record of his own inner journeying and his own individuation process. And the thing, so people study this book and learn lessons from it. But one of the things that Jung said at one point, you study my red book, you're meant to write your own, which struck me as quite insightful on the part of Jung, but also, it goes back to you want to learn the tarot, so you want to be able to answer your own questions as well as answer the questions of other people. How are you going to do it? And I think the actual solution is trust yourself. So, and the thing about the idea of command and control, this I think leads us to the video in the last one by Ken James, where he had 3 cards. I haven't got them here, what the cards were, but the question was, how do I improve my career, or how do I promote my career? And we got the Queen of Swords, the 8 of Bantams, and the Queen of Cups. And so the first card was meant to show the overview. The middle card was the challenge, and the third card was the action to be taken. And that's a bit like Ken James, or the Jungian analyst, had the answers, and he decided, okay, card 1 is going to be the overview. But what if the questioner doesn't want to know about an overview? Maybe they've already got an overview, and they're not interested in an overview. They want an answer to their question. We want to know stuff. We want to know what to do. So the question about the challenge, that was good from Ken James's point of view. Let's figure out what the challenge is. Maybe the questioner is fed up with challenges. Maybe their life for the last 20 years has been one challenge after another, and they're sick of it. They want peace. They want an answer. They want a solution. They don't want to know what the challenge is. And the third card, what action to take. Maybe they don't want to take action. Maybe they want quiet, and they want somebody to solve the problem for them, which is fair enough. And I'm sure we've all been in a situation like that, where we don't want to know, we just want it to get better. We don't want to have to do anything. So there's a thing I came across a while ago about how people have 3 types of questions. The questions about health, relationships, and money. But the thing about questions about money is people don't want to know how to make more money. People want unearned income. They want lots of money, sure, but they don't want to have to work for it. So money is not really how to make more money or how to earn more. Usually it's about how can I win a lottery, or how can I suddenly have tons of cash. So with all that in mind, what do you do with okay, so somebody wants to know how can I promote my career? And what you do is, that's the question, but rather than decide you're going to design a spread, and this will be the subconscious element, and this is the influence of other people, and this is the advice of the tarot, and this is what you need to know that you don't already know. All that kind of stuff is fine, but somehow it's involved with command and control. Whereas the tarot is huge, and the tarot is infinitely large. So what you do is, the question is, how am I going to promote? How can I promote my career? And so you do this. You take 3 cards, and you take your lead from the card that comes up, rather than have a preconceived idea that this is the overview, this is the challenge, this is the action. What do? The 5 of Swords. That's how you promote your career. Maybe understand in what way you're hurting other people, or in what way you're hurting yourself. So you can look at that card and you immediately have certain ideas about what it would, rather than try to learn the meaning, because the meaning depends on the question. And I'll get to that in a bit. Because somebody left a comment about the Queen of Swords card, and it reminds her of her mother, who is very difficult, or who was very difficult. But the thing is, the question was, how am I going to promote my career? And the answer was the Queen of Swords. Not who am I going to marry? And the answer is the Queen of Swords. So the meaning that you give to the card depends to a huge extent on the question that was asked. So there's no point really in learning meanings. They make, okay, you learn, this is what the card means, but so what? It may not be relevant for that question or for that questioner. So rather than think you've got to learn everything, all the meanings, and know all the meanings, you don't. You need to trust yourself and look at the card, and you're not making it up out of nothing. You're looking at the card and the picture, and you're figuring out what sense it makes to answer the question that was asked. So we look at this Five of Swords. What does it mean? Maybe the Five of Swords is pointing out that this is you and your career in the past, that you've been disappointed. And maybe you were disappointed because you had the chance to be decisive and you didn't take it. So you talk about what the card shows, and then maybe the questioner can give you a comment or an answer to what you're saying. And that is the conversation developing in the correct way for that questioner at that time. So you may come up with, or you may point out that maybe they had chances in the past and say, yes, I did, but I didn't think I could. So maybe that leads into, okay, in the past you had chances, but you didn't take them. Maybe you figured out why not. So these two cards could explain why they didn't take the chance that they had in the past. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's, don't quite know. So that's how to promote your career. Be decisive. And maybe you decide that if it's between you and somebody else, you have to decide if you really want it that much. Because maybe you and a friend are up for the same position. What do you want? Do you want the job and maybe lose your friend? Or do you want to give up the job so that your friend is happy? Even if your friend can't handle the job and maybe it doesn't last. So what do you do with the Five of Swords? And we get the Sun reversed. So because the Sun is a major trump and upside down, it may be that you need to first think about what job do you actually want? What promotion do you want? Or how do you want to develop your career? And because the Sun is upside down and the Sun shares light, right? Sunshine, daylight is visible. You can see what you're doing in daylight, but it's upside down. In some way you're in the dark. So think about what direction you want to go in, set some goals, develop some standards, develop some methods that you're going to develop that satisfy you, because the Sun is upside down. And maybe that's why the Five of Swords is here, that you were undecided because you didn't know what you wanted to do. So at this point, first you need to think about what actually you want to do. Then you, personally, maybe you've spoken with people or read things about how to figure out the goal that you want to achieve. And then you talk about a method that worked for you when you were undecided, and you pass on knowledge that you've got to the questioner. Or maybe you don't remember your own experience, but you remember something that somebody told you. And that is going to be valuable for the questioner to hear. If you can't remember your own experience, but you remember somebody else's, that's because your own experience would not have been valuable to the questioner, but this other person's experience is valuable. So we're not making it up. We're sort of taking our lead from the card. And the third card was the Four of Batons reversed. So what's that? Four of Batons is a card of celebration. So how do you promote your career? Do something that you can celebrate, that maybe because we've got people waiting to welcome you after you walk through the gate or walk through under the whatever this thing is, this canopy, but it's upside down. Do something you'll be proud of. Do something that other people will welcome. So maybe you've got ideas about what to do, or you've got a new product or a new invention or a new take on an old way of doing things. Express it. Tell people what you know and they'll be glad that you told them, because at this point you're holding yourself back, because the people that are ready to welcome you, but you're not going to them. You're not taking what you've got that's valuable and useful and passing it on to other people. So you need a platform. You need to have, and maybe you publish, or maybe you write articles, or you start a blog where you explain or describe or talk about what you find interesting and important. So we're not thinking this is the overview, which maybe it's the overview, but somehow it's not that interesting. And what's the challenge and what's the action to take? That sounds good, and it sounds reasonable because you're coming from a position of command and control. But really, it's not a tarot reading, I think. So that was that there. What have I got here? Oh, yeah. And I came across this note I'd made ages ago. We've got confirmation bias. We see what we want to see, or we see what we expect. And we want to know what we want. Well, not we want to know what we want to know, but people expect, and that's what they see. This is one of the reasons they say you shouldn't go grocery shopping if you're hungry, because everything looks tasty and you end up buying stuff that you're never going to eat. So we have confirmation bias. How do you overcome confirmation bias? You pick a card at random. Some people in their videos talk about go through the deck and pick the card that stands out, or the card that you notice. That's encouraging confirmation bias. You're going to pick what you feel comfortable with, but it's not necessarily the right thing to do. Whereas if you pick a card at random, the two buttons, that gives you something to talk about, and that's the next step or the next area to discuss or to discover. And it's not what you might expect, and it's not what you were maybe thinking of, but it overcomes confirmation bias. So it's useful. That's one of the values of the tarot, is that if you go to a Jungian or an Adlerian or a Freudian, they've got their own preconceived idea about how things ought to be. And so they're going to give you, what's that thing about, if you've got a hammer, every problem is a nail, right? So you're going to hammer that, you've got a nail, so you hammer it in. If you've got a screwdriver, every problem is a screw, because the screwdriver works with a screw. A hammer works with a nail. But instead of that, the value of the tarot is 78 cards. Pick one or two or three and see what they talk about, and that will lead to the answer. And then trust yourself. How do you trust yourself? You trust yourself by trusting yourself. Just do it. Because we need to remember there's only one of you, one exact person like you. Even twins are slightly different. They've got a slightly different horoscope because they're not born at the same instant. So only you can be you. Only you can do what you can do. And that's why I've got here, only you can be you. You're on your own. And ultimately we're all alone, because only we can do what we can do. And it's up to us to actually do it. And that's what I mean by trust yourself. So if you trust yourself and learn to trust yourself, it'll work. And then I've got, remember the question. So the question that's asked in a lot of ways determines the meaning. So a court card can be a person. It can be a person you already know, or somebody you're going to meet, or it can be an aspect of you that you're meant to develop, or it can be an aspect of you that you ought to do something about because it's not working. So rather than think the Queen of Cups or the Queen of Swords is whatever, harsh and demanding and difficult, that's going to be true in some cases, but that's not always the meaning or always the answer. And so I think what we do is we write down the question and then pick a card or a number of cards and then figure out what sense it makes, what the card is pointing out or pointing to, and then figuring out the right way or the best way or the most efficient way to get to where the card is pointing. And that's the answer to your question. So next time, I didn't want to do it today just to keep this video shorter, but next time I want to talk a little bit about fire, air, earth and water and the problems we've got with that, and as well as I'll talk about dementia, 312's comment about good and bad, and Shakespeare and thinking makes it so, and a couple of other comments that people left. I'd like to deal with them in a separate video next. So that was it for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you in a bit. Okay, bye-bye.